This insightful discussion will look at the industry from different angles, offering perspectives on the African markets and beyond. Please give a warm welcome to the moderator, Andrea Badiola Mateos, Chief Commercial Officer at Finance Magnates Group, who will introduce her panel.
Thank you. Thank you, Elisa. Welcome, everyone. This is our very first Finance Magnates Summit in Africa. We are very, very excited to be here with all of you. And we're very excited to welcome an amazing group of panelists that are top executives in best brands that are in Africa and have a lot to say to this audience. We're also live streaming on TradingView, so a lot of people are watching us from abroad. So welcome to all of our panelists. We're going to get started. I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves, a little bit your role, what you do, because that's the best way to introduce yourselves. So, Damien, maybe you want to go first.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. My name is Damien Bunce. I'm Chief Customer Officer at XNES. XNES is the world's largest retail multi-asset market maker today. We execute close to $4 trillion per month. We're very prevalent here in Africa. We're regulated here in South Africa. We also operate on the east and on the west side, Kenya and Nigeria. I have been running our trading business for the last 2.5 years, and most recently as CCO, I'm responsible for building relationships with the press, with the media, telling our story, strengthening relationships with regulators, and obviously dealing with partners and clients, etc. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, Damien.
Thank you.
Andreas.
Hello. Yep. Thank you, Damien. My name is Andreas Kapsos. I'm the CEO of Match Prime Liquidity. Also, for us, it's very exciting to be here since we have a lot of brokers which showed interest in our product, and also we have some existing clients. So for us, it's a pleasure and always exciting to be back in Africa.
Thank you, Andreas. Mario.
Morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Mario. I'm the founder and chairman of Fullerton Markets, which is one of Asia's fastest growing multi-asset brokerage firms. As founder and chairman, my main role globally is to implement a global strategy for the entire company and to mentor the senior executives. That's the day side. On the family side, I run a charity with my wife in Singapore. It's called Soul Rich Foundation. I like writing. I've written 4 books, the last book being a title called The Magical Rule of 3.
Thank you, Mario. Wei.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Wei. I'm from London. I'm representing the brand ATFS UK and ATFS Connect. We are a CFD FX broker providing service for retail and also institutional business. So we're here not competing, making friends. All of you here are our clients. If you want a business, our booth there, you want a job, we're also welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Wei.
Hi, my name is... Hello. Okay. Hi, my name is Amar Ramit. I am the CEO of TD Markets. TD Markets started off as pretty local brokerage, and we now have grown to the fastest growing within the African continent. We're expanding quite rapidly within several regions of Africa right now as we speak. We've got operations in Botswana, Kenya, Ghana, and, well, headquartered in Johannesburg in South Africa. Definitely looking forward to meeting a lot of you throughout this summit. I think South Africa or Africa has needed this platform for a very, very long time. So, yeah.
Thank you, Amar. Without further ado, we're going to start the conversation. Let's open up by starting a little bit about what's the state of the market, what's in the foreseeable future, what trends are you seeing, what's the state of the market? Who wants to go first?
Well, since we're going to go in this direction, Andrea, I'll kick off. Look, I mean, now is an unbelievable time to be a trader. I mean, it's risky, the markets are choppy, but if you think of the activity that's taking place, you know, traders, they thrive on yield, on finding opportunities where there's volatility. And in the crypto space, for example, we're seeing a sort of a resurgence now in Bitcoin. This region trades in Bitcoin, so again, there's opportunities there. If you think about the invasion that took place in Ukraine, obviously that has a big knock-on effect to oil and gold prices, and we see gold at all-time highs. Right now, gold presents an excellent opportunity for traders. Then the foreign exchange markets, unprecedented. We nearly saw parity taking place in cable and also in Eurodollar. The Japanese yen as well. I mean, that's had extreme movement driven by inflationary pressures taking place with the Fed. There's so much activity ahead. We've got 18 central bank announcements between the ECB, the Fed, and the Bank of England. So there's 18 announcements before the end of the year. Not to mention OPEC and oil. I mean, it's a fantastic time to be a trader. Albeit with risk management, of course.
Yeah, volatility is in the high, yeah.
Yeah, I
Andrea?
totally agree with Damien. He's always spot on in his points, I have to admit. Totally agree, and I would also like to add the geopolitical situation in general. Like what's going on creates a very dynamic and very volatile market. Another thing which is very important to mention is the introduction of more technology, which allows the brokers to get to choose what they trade and where they trade. That creates a very nice environment and creates more and more opportunities for both the retail and institutional area.
Mario.
I'll come on the other side. I feel that the emotions are a little bit pessimistic. Here's what I mean. Because Andrea was asking on the state of the capital markets. If I'm going to sum it up in 2 words, I feel the 2 words is lacking trust. And what I mean by that is if you look at the entire year last year, you look at all the major firms that went belly up. You started with Luna and Terra, you had Voyager, you had Celsius, you had the whole blow-up of FTX, which everyone knows. So trust is lacking. This is point one. But there's always opportunity because each time things fail, there's always opportunity for every single one in the room to get back up. A word comes to mind. In Chinese, there's this word called Wei Ji. And Wei Ji, I've heard it many times. It's a combination of 2 words. It's a combination of danger and opportunity. The word Wei Ji actually means crisis, right? But where there's danger, there's opportunity. So where really is the opportunity? For me, I think it's a war cry for everyone, for every business owner, for every trader, for every investor to solve the trust issue. Because once trust is solved, business comes naturally. And the greatest rewards in any sector will always go to the company or the person who solves the biggest challenges.
Thank you, yeah.
If I can just comment on that as well, I think that's very important for Africa. Africa is a very traditional market where you've got to do business in a traditional sense of a relationship. We're in an industry where our product is online. Everything we do is based in a very large and vast cyber world. African business, on the other hand, is very personalized. It requires human touch to it. So I agree completely with you, Mario. I think trust is a very large defining factor for success and growth in our industry altogether.
Wei?
I'm not a trader, but I can give you some inside information about our flow. We can see a lot of clients are making money in the last few months. As Mario said, in our business, we like fluctuation, up and down. So not like a traditional stock market, you can only bet on growing. So as ATFX, the brand, we are promoting a lot of products that give you more flexibility to trade with the right leverage, with the right access. So I think it's a good time to get in the market.
We have been witnessing for the last few years, since particularly between 2019 and 2020, we have seen the African market on retail traders grow by 54%, reaching 6.9 million traders. And we have all been discussing in all of the other events that we always meet up at around the world, that the industry is always looking for new streams. Can the African market be the answer? Is the trend, is this the direction that is going to?
Well, I mean, no question. This is a huge opportunity, and hence the reason that XNES and other brokers are here. I think, Mario, your point on trust was a very good one, and it resonated with everyone here. And we can see that the regulatory framework in this country is undergoing good reform. The regulators are active. And so it's a good way of creating trust. As far as this community, I mean, I read recently that in terms of emerging markets, behind China and India, Africa's got the largest growth. So it's natural. Why wouldn't you, for example, want to be involved in a country with a population in Nigeria, for example, of over 200 million, and here, 60 million? I mean, there's clearly opportunities in this part of the world, and that's why you're seeing increased number of global, respectable brokers opening offices and setting up with the regulators here.
Yep.
I agree, because numbers don't lie. I mean, at the end of the day, these numbers are very, very big to ignore. And I think the reason of this lies on 3-4 variables. One would be regulation. The second would be the infrastructure. So more people have more access to internet here, so they can access the financial markets easier, which is very important. And of course, the regulator here, and the trust, what the gentleman said. So I think these 4 variables becoming better and better throughout the years. It's inevitable to see that the South Africa and Africa in general will increase, and I totally believe that it will play an important role in the future of our industry, undoubtedly.
Mario, what are your thoughts?
I'm very much in agreement with Damien and Andreas. I mean, if Africa didn't have a bright spark, none of us would be here, right? So what is the beautiful thing about this entire continent? I mean, numbers, we don't have to run through numbers in terms of the size of the entire continent. It's over 1 billion people. What is interesting for me that I notice is that in terms of the rate of growth of this continent, it is something that many businesses are looking at. All right, so this is point number 1. I read an interesting article recently by the World Bank that actually says rate of growth of this entire continent, anywhere between 4 to 6%. But that's a rate of growth that China used to be growing at. That's one, which is great. Number 2, in terms of the disposable income of people, is also going up. So the World Bank actually mentioned within the next 2 to 3 years, by the year 2025, most African countries, all the 50 plus countries in this continent, will hit middle class status. And what that they define in terms of Africa, over $1,000 in terms of their GDP per capita, spending power. Now this is good for all businesses, because once you reach middle class, essentially it means you've got more disposable income to start trading, to start building businesses. Yep. One other last quick point to mention, in terms of strategy, I feel what can work for everyone in the room, including all my peers here. I use the word demographic strategy. And what that means is we've got to be crystal clear. Are we serving the retail market? Are we serving the high net worth market? Or are we serving the corporate market? Because all 3 of them have got different needs and wants. So that's just something I wanted to share. The demographic strategy is very important. You've got to know who you're pandering your tools, your products, and your services to.
100%, yes.
Totally agree with Mario. I also read the article about the growth rate of Africa. It's kind of like shocking. 7% and 6% growth in the last 2 years. Amazing, because 10 years of in China. So regarding strategy as well, I think in Africa, what we have done is we have to provide some tailor-made products and also some value-added service, like a copy trading, like education. I think people here are eager to learn what is the market, what is the trading, how can we try to make money, try to avoid the risk. So that's the key things in here. I'm traveling LATAM a lot. Emerging market is the key topic in this year. European business, UK business, kind of like a slowdown. I think if we as a broker, if we want to grow the next level, we have to focus on those markets.
Just to add something to what these 2 gentlemen mentioned, this creates an opportunity without a doubt to Africa, but this creates for us an obligation, because we already know how things escalated in previous markets that they were growing like this, to embrace the opportunity here and help the market here to follow and take the right decisions, to do it the right way, because we have the opportunity to share this knowledge with them and guide them in the right direction.
Amar?
I think, yes, there's growth. There's excellent growth in the African continent, but it's also worthy to take note of the fact that the market itself is evolving. The client market, so whether you're looking at the higher net worth or the retail market, the market has evolved to a point where Africa is no longer completely lacking in technology and the understanding of technology. So, to your point of, being able to help and guide, I think it's also important to take note of the actual activity originating from Africa. If you look at, for example, out of the Cape region, when we've had Luno, one of the largest exchanges at a point, founded and completely designed here, backed by investment banks that are purely South African based. I suppose we also have the unfortunate realities of the not so kosher things, such as MTI, which originated in South Africa. So while it's great that the growth is ensuing in the continent, it's important to take note of the evolution of the general mindset and the general availability of actual resource within the region.
Yeah, so precisely speaking about the resources in the region, and I think we are all in agreement that there is a very high growth rate in Africa as a region in general, South Africa in particular as well, when it comes to financial services. Now, what are the main challenges that the region is encountering? Because with such high speed of growth in something, sometimes there are things that start lacking behind that cannot pick up the pace. Like, for example, what about technology infrastructure? What about electricity? I've been here since Saturday and I already had quite a few blackouts. So how does these, for example, affect the business? How does it affect the financial industry? We rely on the internet. I mean, all the businesses are mainly online. So how does this affect, and other challenges, right?
Well, clearly having a blackout's not good for a trading position. Fortunately, all of you will be dealing with brokers that have global infrastructures that stay operational 24/7. So while your screen might close down, you can be sure that your order is still going to be there when you open the screen. Look, one thing that I wanted to sort of comment on, and I see this when I travel around and you look at economies that are growing and trading communities that are growing, and it's around education, because it's one thing to understand or have a view, on the marketplace and on movements in markets, and all of us can have that perspective. We might all differ on our views, and one of us will be right and one of us will be wrong. But the reality is that education is so important because so few people that trade really understand the dynamics of the market. And let me give you an example. It's Sunday evening when the market for foreign exchange opens. So let's assume that you put a trade, in the UK that is, let's assume that you put a trade on around about that time in the morning. That's also one of the lowest liquidity periods. It's a period when you can get huge gaps in the market, when the market opens and there's a gap. And if the market opens and there's what's called a gap, you can get slippage on stop orders and immediately lose money. And this is like really common educational things that new traders don't understand. And when they experience losing money because they have a leveraged trade on an anomaly that they don't understand, their inclination is to blame the broker as a scammer or as being unreliable or dishonest. And it comes down to proper education. So the regulator earlier on talked about, or I can't remember who it was that spoke about, these people that are on the social media channels. I mean, yes, of course there are scammers and they'll always exist, but there's also some really good educational people out there. And I notice particularly in this part of the world, it's used a lot to educate people on, hey, look, I put this trade on, look at the impact of what happened, and then people can learn from that. So I wouldn't dismiss all of this as scamming.
Andreas?
Yes, there are challenges and opportunities, as you mentioned. I will focus a bit on the opportunities in this part, and I would say that the opportunity of Africa in general now is the opportunity of having new technology coming in now and utilize it. This is a very big opportunity, and I see it from us. I mean, as a group, we have right now 210 brokers under our belt. We have our own MTR trading platform, which is very... we didn't expect to have this interest from Africa, and we did, which shows that a new interest comes from this region as well. And this makes us motivated and gives us the motivation to come here and share this product and promote it and see how it goes. This is very good because it creates an opportunity even for us and also for the brokers to learn something new.
Mario, what's your take?
I'll share a challenge and a solution. The challenge for South Africa as a country as a whole, numbers don't lie, guys. The GDP per capita of South Africa is dropping. It's dropping. 10 years ago, the GDP per capita is about $7,500 in 2013. This year, is 6,500. Can you imagine that? So while we have to understand that's the problem. Investments may be slowing down from a global perspective, but the answer is GDP per capita is slowing here. That's the challenge. We got to understand the lay of the land. You're going to compound that challenge with inflation. Inflation here is about 7%. Everybody understands inflation. You're feeling it. Food is more expensive. Petrol is more expensive. Housing is more expensive. So what's the answer? I cannot agree more with these two gentlemen. The answer is education and productivity. Now, education, we don't need to speak too much about it. Get yourselves educated. But education has a moral imperative to it. Let me explain. It's not just so much on what to do. You've got to understand in terms of should you do it or not, so that you know clearly which companies are the right one and which are the crap ones. You've got to have this level of discernment in you, which is, to me, I feel, what education brings to the table, okay? So it's just not about what to do. There's a moral imperative. Should I do it or not?
We like a challenge. I think challenge equal to Andrew's side, opportunity. Before we came to here, people tell us, oh, don't go outside, don't do this, don't do that. I mean, that's so dangerous, why we're here, right? But another thing about GDP is the whole continent. I read something about 9,000 billions GDP in total, all the countries. But you look at the chart, top 5 countries represent 55%. So I think to face the challenge, you have to choose the right market. So that's why we're coming here to South Africa, because one of the leading countries in the continent. We need to set up something here and spread our service to the continent. So, yeah.
Amar?
Yeah, I think the electricity challenge everybody knows quite well. In fact, it's one of the contributing factors to why there's such a reduction in terms of GDP per capita. We've essentially got a large amount of skilled resources in terms of labor leaving the country to migrate to other countries. With that in mind, though, I think our industry being relatively young in South Africa specifically, should actually look towards what its actual investment is in the country if it intends on embarking on partaking part of the growth that is in the region. What are we doing as companies within this environment to actually benefit the environment? First and foremost would likely be, our contribution to the regulator. If they understand a bit better and they understand the fast pace of innovation and change in terms of which we can offer a product, it gives them a better stance to be able to give a client the opportunity to not have to be faced with the decision about whether this company is a scam or not. It's much better supervised. But at the same time, of course, there's tax revenue, and South Africa does direly need it in the fintech space, given the amount of actual fintech originating from here.
Yes.
I would like to continue on Mario. It's very important to emphasize the importance of education here, because it's not just for the retail traders that we're referring to. I'm also referring on the obligation of our side to provide this education in order for decision making to be correct. It's our obligation as well at the same time, and I think doing that in Africa will benefit everyone.
And picking up on what Amar just said of the involvement of the regulators. So, you're some of the actors that have come in the last few years into South Africa, into the African region as a general, but there is many, many, many other. So this growth of new actors in South Africa, how is the regulator adjusting to this growth? What is the difference between South African regulation and other regulations? How is that evolving?
Well, for those of you that listened to the speech this morning, the regulator explained the process that they're taking here to evaluate new trends. And in fact, it was a very insightful answer, but it does follow regulation in developed markets. So when you think about the UK, the FCA in the UK is always considered to be a gold standard for regulation, and that does kind of get copied around the world. They have a thing called the sandbox, which means that new fintech companies can try out ideas without getting locked up or thrown in jail, so innovation can kind of flourish. I think it's really crucial. The regulator plays a very, very, very vital role in making a new economy flourish or die. And in developed countries where regulation is too stringent, inflexible, maybe overprotective for the consumer at the expense of the broker, then what happens is everybody goes offshore. And they use offshore regulators that are more flexible, they're still stable, and they operate under those jurisdictions. Whereas if South Africa is able to develop a framework, which we believe it can, that's flexible and innovative, it will attract great local players here and great offshore players as well. So I think it's I think from what I'm hearing, the regulatory framework here is evolving very well.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the regulator has the advantage to mirror and follow other regulations, such as the UK one and also SISEC or some other very prestigious regulations. But again, this comes as an advantage to the regulator here, because they have examples to follow and take decisions based on that. Although South Africa being grey listed now is a very good opportunity to take appropriate measures to create an atmosphere and embrace the demand from the people here and be able to structure something which is going to be sustainable, interesting and challenging for the future.
Our company doesn't currently have an African license. It's my first time in Africa, participating in such a panel. So it's for us to get a feel of the land. That's step number one. Point number two, I feel regulators are so important, but they can do more. So I want to be careful in what I say. Let me dissect. Generally, I feel regulators are more reactive compared to being proactive. And it's not their fault. Think about it, right? It's only when you have issues with the companies and the companies are trying to screw you over, then you go take your case or the complaint to the regulator, in which case your money is probably gone. So regulators are essentially more reactive. Nothing wrong with that, but that's the way it is, right? There's got to be a tripartite arrangement here. Number one, the regulator, right? Because being regulated, their main job is to protect the retail client. That's step number one. Step number two, you need to have your own form of education to understand. So that's coming up from the previous point, okay? Number three, for the business providers, the companies, we need to have a form of self-regulation as well, which is where I mentioned in my previous question, the moral imperative comes in. And I think that's important for us to all understand. So a tripartite arrangement between the regulators, the companies, and the clients itself. When these three form together, then I think it's going to be a very robust, proactive initiative rather than just relying on the regulator to give you all the answers.
Yeah, Wei?
Yeah, from my view, as a broker, we have multiple licenses from UK, Cyprus, and other offshore jurisdictions as well. We always trade, UK FCA handbook as our guidance to do business properly. From my view, there's two things very important. One is the customer fund or client fund safety. So those rules put in place to make sure the money is yours. You give us money, we take care of that. We put in segregation, we don't touch it. There's so many brokers go into bankruptcy. The reason is that they touch the client fund, and also crypto companies as well, as you know. And the second thing is about the risk. So we have to tell the clients, what are you doing now in our business is different. It's not like you're buying a house, right? You can waiting for the movement, but you are trading. So with also high leverage as well in some jurisdiction. So you have to make sure you can afford it. You cannot bet your life on it. You have to make sure you calculate your risk, how much you can afford. So that's the things the regulation put in place for our companies to give clients a warning before they trade, to give clients training as well, like education.
I actually agree quite wholeheartedly with you, Mario. There's quite a large moral imperative at play. For the bulk of it, I think the growth in the industry results in a lot of new startups, a lot of entrance into the market from other regions. But a lot of the time, it's not necessarily in a client centricity type of manner. The idea is, and I'll quote Caroline De Silva, she was the ex-DG of the FSCA. She said, it's not our job to police everything. A regulator gives you a framework. in the best interest, the regulator serves for a singular point of safety for a client, should the client have to undergo anything that sort of puts them out of place. But the moral imperative is huge. The self-regulating factor from at least those that are kosher within the industry and those that have a better footing and much more resources to be able to structure how an industry should be functioning and actually sit down in a forum with the regulator to guide them as well. The reality is the change and the innovation and the new product and the new trading account and so on, it's all designed on our end from a brokerage perspective or from a fintech perspective. The regulator isn't aware of it until, again, somebody complains about something. So, sitting down with the regulator, for example, like Avelani mentioned earlier on, at the Intergovernmental FinTech Working Group, is an excellent platform. I think that was started and it was spurred on by the rise in crypto. But the CFD and the FX space should actually be largely included within that forum. Because the crypto industry is quite a blurred line into what we've been doing for several decades now.
I think the self-regulatory framework is appropriate in some areas, and in other areas it can be a disaster because it's open to sort of interpretation. But what's interesting is, okay, if you trade with leverage, that means that you're effectively borrowing money from your broker to trade in a larger position. There's clearly upsides to that, and the upside could be unlimited. You have opportunity to make more money from your investment than you actually have on deposit. And the regulator started to get educated on this because they understood that if the market moved down slightly, you could lose all your deposit. And you wouldn't necessarily have chance through what's called liquidation. You wouldn't necessarily have chance to top up your funds. So the regulator, because it introduced professionals to work for it, the regulator introduced something called negative balance protection. It's pretty good. It means that you can put your money on account. You have the potential with leverage to earn maximum upside, but you have your downside capped at zero. That's fantastic for the retail trader. It's very hard and expensive for the broker. But it's an example where regulation employs professionals and says, this is really crucial. This is going to make a big difference. And in fact, it served the purpose of separating out the big, powerful brokers from those smaller, less capitalized brokers, making the world a safer place.
Self-regulation is a very, very good topic. Sorry. When I meet some clients this year, one of the favorite questions is, okay, we heard FTX, we heard Credit Suisse. So how can you make sure your company is not next? I said, I cannot answer you that. Because size-wise, they're much bigger than we are, right? I mean, they also have a problem. But things differently is how do you do business yourself, self-regulation. And we treat FSA handbook as a guidance, but there's no clear details of what you should do. It's a principle-based. So you as a company, from compliance officer to the CEO of the company, you have the mindset of compliance. So what we have done is every month we have a training. We keep reminding our sales team, keep reminding our management team what you should do, behave yourself. Regarding any money laundering, regarding sales pitch, do not mis-sell to the customer. Follow the guidance. So that's one is not only you have the mindset, you have to put some procedure policy in place.
Okay, thank you all for all your inputs on regulation. I'm sure that the audience has taken very, very good pointers from it. I want to step a little bit outside of the regulatory framework and the trends, etc. I want to talk a little bit about this global trend that we're all witnessing of AI. It's a very exciting topic that is going around the world. It has made headlines in every single newspaper, including Finance Magnates, Forex Live. All of the newspapers that are in the fintech industry as well are very much into covering this topic right now. So I'm very interested in hearing your side of it. And how do you think this AI trend development is possibly to be applied into your businesses, particularly in Africa? Is Africa and South Africa ready to embrace AI? Is it something that can be used?
Well, look, I would argue that this AI revolution it's applicable, worldwide. So, hyper personalization, which is a trend where your experience is completely tailored to you, is relevant here in Africa as much as it is in America or UK or anywhere else. I think the reality is when we as brokers, when we think about AI, where it's really penetrating today is into customer services. And that's the place where AI right now in its evolution is having the biggest impact. Some people might talk about better pricing on Bitcoin because of AI. And frankly speaking, I think that's a little bit far-fetched. There's some experiments in that area, but right now it's in customer service. And I'll give you a small example, and poor Andrea's heard this before, but we've observed on large amounts of data, we can observe a trend whereby you see a small deposit followed by a small withdrawal. That may not mean much to anybody, but when you see that on a very, very large amount of data, you can find out that customers actually are testing your system. They're making sure that they can deposit the money and they can withdraw it. And when you know that, because you're using AI to mine large amounts of data, it's a trigger or it's a call to action for salespeople to maybe contact that customer now, because the chances are that what's following a successful withdrawal is a big deposit. So at least as far as XNES is concerned, we use AI extensively, but it's largely in customer services.
Andreas.
I will add a point on hyper-personalization here in Africa. And I will take banking as an example for this example. And I would say that since people don't have access to actually go to the bank and have access to the bank directly, the hyper-personalization can provide that, because the amount of data that comes in, if you are able to analyze it, then you can customize and contact the client individually and contact him regarding what he needs specifically. This is something that definitely can be used in Africa. This is very important to point out.
Mario.
AI is good. I mean, one of the quotes it just came to mind. I follow a guy called Peter Drucker. He's passed on already. One of the finest American business consultants. One of the greatest things he has ever said is this, okay? The purpose of any business is two things. Number one, innovation. Number two, marketing that innovation. And it's great, right? Because if you have these two things, then companies like Nokia, Toys R Us wouldn't have died. So innovation's a good thing. AI is a good thing. Even in our company, we've had to let go of certain people because their jobs were just redundant already. With the advance of ChatGPT, Midjourney, and just so many other productivity tools, people are losing their jobs. So that's the reality of it. Okay? Now this is step one. Step two, I think this is like a common theme, man, about this moral imperative. I'm not so sure whether you guys saw this article about 2 months back, right? Elon Musk was one of those that actually signed a petition, like 1,000 people. Oh, we've got to slow down the advancement of AI because it might take over the entire world. But there's some people saying, oh, he's only doing that because he wants the rest to slow down while he accelerates. There was an article that Vinod Khosla said that about him. So where are we? Is it a good thing? Yes, for sure. Think about it. None of all these companies will be here if we didn't take steps to innovate. So scalability, sustainability, projecting into the future, it is important. If not, we'll just be all dead. But the moral imperative, again, is so important. What are we doing it for? To just enrich ourselves? Or are we doing it to ensure that we are pushing forward the human race? Even the Bible says this, even Satan himself can disguise himself as an angel of light. So where are we? Discernment, friends. The key is always discernment.
I personally use ChatGPT a lot. So before I come here, I searched Mario as well. I think it's quite efficient. If you search Google, you have to go through yourself page by page. But if you ask Bing, you ask ChatGPT, you can get result instantly. They link to LinkedIn, link to the publication, everything. But I think the main thing for AI is marketing. Just simply you link the name AI with your company, make you stand out. And also it's a hot topic in the last few months. Last year we talked about crypto. Nobody talked about AI, but now it's AI. But AI for marketing, one thing I found very interesting is when you do TikTok, the post. Now if you search on the ChatGPT, I know it's probably not up to date, but it can give you some topic you want to talk, right? You should talk. And also, when you do testing, right? When you do like landing page or something, you can use AI to draft the ones the client like to click. So instead of you have wait for a few months, you see the result, and then you implement the next stage. I think for marketing, AI will be very, very useful.
Yeah, I think the common theme is quite obvious, right? There is the moral imperative, but at the same time, on Damien's point, I think in our space, well, customer service would really be, the key area of the utilization of AI. But I think most importantly, and there's been a level of AI in our industry as long as it exists. I mean, we've got significant algorithmic trading that occurs. A lot of it is now becoming exceptionally more advanced. On our book of clients, we essentially have a lot of clients making a lot of money specifically by continuously updating algorithms. But from a GPT perspective, or we could call ourselves TD Markets GPT, and everybody becomes all excited about it. But the reality is, it's an aid to the marketing approach. If we can pick out a client and give that client exactly what they want, when they want it, that's really where the largest level of AI would play a role for us at this stage.
I will add my own note to everything that everybody has said. I have to say I slightly disagree with Mario, what you said about it eventually leads to some people losing their jobs. I think that some positions are going to become redundant, but those people will recycle into new positions that imply using the AI. What we are seeing from our end, for example, I use it daily. I use AI daily for a lot of different tools, but nobody has been made redundant because what we have managed to do is be way more productive. We're doing much more with exactly the same resources. So instead of letting somebody go to be able to keep up and produce the same, we're just doing much more with exactly the same resources, which makes us way more efficient. And I think this is something that can definitely be applied in Africa and help businesses thrive in the long run. That would be my take. We have run out of time. So what I'm going to do is ask if the audience has any questions, and maybe we can fit one or two max. There is one question over there.
Yes, to Andrea. Andrea, you mentioned load shedding. So it seems like it has not been actually answered. So, but I would ask Mario to at least maybe explain it further. Now, load shedding is pushing the going green. Now, Africa is now going green, like the whole Europe is going green. So we would not go green without the load shedding, because solar system is now in action, and then gas is also being bought. So is it now, you said that the market has been affected by load shedding, as Andrea said. So now, do you think it's that the fact that is load shedding is affecting the market while we are pushing again going green standard of life? I don't know if maybe I'm clear to you,
No,
Mario.
it's actually not clear to me, bro. I apologize. Can you give me the last part again? I heard load sharing. What is load sharing?
Load shedding.
Load sharing.
Yeah, load shedding. No, electricity going down.
The blackout, yeah.
The blackout in South Africa. Yes. So the blackout has caused another change. People are using another system for providing electricity, like buying solar system.
Okay.
Using any other. So now, because we are going green, like going green, it will actually need a solar system.
Okay.
We'll need electric cars,
Yes.
isn't it? So now, that affecting the economy of South Africa, is it?
Is going green affecting the
Yes.
economy of South Africa? Is that a question?
Yes. It is. Now, the load shedding is affecting the economy of South Africa, but load shedding is pushing South Africa to go green. I don't know if you understand that.
It's like a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, it could be
Something like that, right?
A blessing in disguise, maybe.
Yeah.
I think I understood the question. I can try to answer. Without a doubt. I mean, problems create the opportunities, and this becomes, you can improve the country by having such issues, but it affects the economy, undoubtedly, yes. It does. So you need to have business continuity. This is something that every single country and jurisdiction comes against. You need to have this business continuity, and in order to have sustainable economy. So becoming more green is better, undoubtedly, yes. If these plugouts push for more improvement, I believe so. I believe so. I believe the gentleman would agree, but we would like to have the best infrastructure available in Africa so the clients can be more satisfied and obviously evolve.
The key word here is sustainability. From what I'm hearing, okay, whether is it about green or not, it can be any other initiative. The key word is sustainability here. And in terms of sustainability, in my three sharings, it's just these are 3 points. You got to plan for the future. That's it. There is short term, there's medium term, there's long term. Sustainability basically looking far. Even Alibaba, when he says, I want to build a company, Jack Ma, I want to build a company that lasts 102 years, all right, because he technically spans across 3 centuries. So it's about planning for the future. Your question may be specific on green, all right, sustainable future, but the key for everyone here, whether you're a trader, whether you're an investor, whether we are business builders, business operators, the key always is about planning for the future, thinking long-term, having a long-term perspective.
Just to add something to your question, because now something came up to my mind, Andrea will be able to confirm it as well. We had something similar a couple of years ago in Cyprus when we had a really big explosion where the main electricity collapsed. So the whole island was on blackout for days, if I'm not mistaken. So that pushed us on the island and as brokers and as businessmen to find a solution to have business continuity and be able to provide. Obviously, the clients would find a different solution at some point, but it was our obligation. So we learned from that. And what we did, we went to green. So we have a lot of solar panels now in Cyprus installed. And also, we have our own private generators, obviously, so we can be able to sustain if something comes up. We didn't predict that. So this is a very good example, actually. I hope we answer your question, by the way, as far as we understand.
I just want to weigh in on that. I think it's a case of change, right? Who moved my cheese? We're moving away from older fossil fuel burning and so on. Economically, there will be benefit from green energy. You've got solar companies. The energy regulator in South Africa has now started approving independent power producers. Ultimately, there is benefit for the economy because it's new industry. I think it's important to embrace the change. You might be looking at it from a perspective of, okay, what happens when Eskom shuts down? Thousands of employees have no job. But it's actually a case of, well, okay, so let's upskill into green energy. Let's understand how we can utilize this from an economic position. So embracing change, crisis, opportunity.
I think, let me add something, sorry. We have a similar problem in the UK, not necessarily linked to green, but also we rely on external supply of energy too much. Not only UK, but also whole Europe. From my personal experience, the electricity and the gas price going 4 times for my family, for my home. And you can imagine a lot of business. How can they survive? They cannot increase price too much, but the cost is high. And for short-term, problems. But for long-term, for going green or build something sustainable is very, very important for the human race, I think.
To use a metaphor from nature, the brightest diamonds are born under the highest pressures. And with that, let's wrap up the panel. Please, big round of applause to all of our panelists. It has been very, very enlightening. Thank you so much.